Hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And today I'm talking about what am I talking about? Oh, food storage math. What I mean by that is that I get people who ask me, and I understand this, is I have nothing against people asking me this, but they'll ask me, they want some equation or some kind of number of various food items that I should tell them to put up. But I don't do that. And the reason why I don't is because it's the same reason why I don't do that with anything else, really. I don't tell people what, like if they're taking a tincture, what's the right amount for you? Because I'm not going to know that. So just like that, I'm not going to know exactly the right amount of, how many jars of green beans you should put up or canned meat or whatever that's going to be right for you and your family. I'm not going to know that. And what people are looking for is they want to know how much to put up for a whole year to get them through a whole year. And there are charts out there you can find online. And I've gone to some of those charts just to get a baseline, but I'm like, these charts are kind of lame because, like I said, they're just a baseline, but they're not going to apply perfectly to everyone. And the reason why is because you're going to have all kinds of different dietary needs or just preferences. So if I tell people, put up 2,000 jars of green beans, because, I like canned green beans, home canned green beans from my own garden, put up 2,000. That should get you through a year. I don't put up 2,000 for a year, by the way. I'm using hyperbole. But what if the family, maybe only one person in the family likes canned green beans? That might not be a very smart thing to do. Or what if this family doesn't eat a whole lot of grains? Maybe putting up the amount of grains that we put up is not going to be right. So how on earth does somebody figure out what they need for approximately a year? Well, here's where the simplicity comes in. Though it can take time to figure this out, you need to just simply keep track of how many, if you're buying canned foods or if you're canning the foods yourself or you're putting up grains and flours and sugar, just keep track for a month. That's all you have to do, a month. You could even do this just for a week, but the problem with that is a week, I don't think is going to give you a good enough figure. What you eat in a week isn't going to reflect the same kind of things you're going to eat for the whole month, for the next 3 weeks. And well, for most people, usually in a month, you've gone through a lot of what your staples are, your base meals. Like they say that most people have about 10 standard meals that they make consistently. And those 10 meals or however many it is for you or what you're wanting to base that off of. So let's say you're cycling through the same 10 to 15 types of meals, breakfasts, dinners, lunches, snacks, that kind of thing, desserts. I think a month is a pretty good figure, but you're going to have to keep track of it. So let's say at the beginning of that month, you count how many jars or how many pounds of flour, sugar, beans, peaches, corn, whatever it is that you typically put up. And then at the end of that month-long period, you can go longer if you want. Write down how much you've used up. The reason a month, the other reason I say a month is because this is going to make it a lot easier for figuring out the math. So let's say in a month, you've gone through maybe 5 to 10 pounds of flour. Let's say 10 pounds of flour if you do, regular to moderate baking. All you got to do is take that and multiply it by 12. Then you'll know that you need 120 pounds of flour to get you through a year. But again, that figure, I'm just throwing out a number. That might not suit you. Maybe you don't eat a lot of bread. Maybe your family doesn't eat a lot of bread or other types of homemade goods like that. Pancakes, biscuits, cracker bread. That's why you've got to figure out that math for yourself. And then the same thing with whatever canned fruits and vegetables you've put up. Okay, so before you start your count, before you start your figuring, at the beginning of that time frame, go count how many jars of each thing that you have. Each of those things, it can be dried foods too. Each of those things that you use, especially the things you use on a most regular basis. At the end of the month, count how many jars you have left. Take that and then figure out the difference. So I started with 20 jars. Now I have 10 jars. That means I use 10 jars in a month. Take that, multiply it by 12. I keep using 10 because it's easy. And that gives you, 120 jars of some, whatever that is, to get you through that period. Obviously I'm just picking really simple numbers just to throw them out there and to give you that kind of mental, okay, wrap your head around that. Maybe you only go through 2 jars of something in a month. Well, in that case, you're only going to need 24 jars of whatever that is to get you through a year. Now, if you're wanting to put up 3 years, then you take that number and multiply it by 3. To go to any one person, no matter how skilled they are, no matter if they've been putting up food, 2, 3, 5 years worth of food for the past 50 years, they might be able to give you well, this is what I do. But to try to make that fit you, that's probably not going to fit your style. They're probably talking about things that you probably wouldn't even be interested in or don't eat enough of those things. Let's say sweet potatoes or yams. I personally like them. Patrick's kind of so-so on that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to put a lot of that stuff up. That it would be silly for me to do that because we don't eat enough of that kind of stuff between us for me to put up a whole bunch. Where somebody else, that might be their very, very favorite thing. So they're going to put up, maybe they eat that stuff once a week. We might only eat it a couple times a year. So you can't just follow somebody else's guideline for that. You've got to figure it out for yourself. Now, I honestly don't remember how many pounds of flour or grains or how many bags of coffee I may go through in a year because I've been doing this long enough that it was a while back that I figured out, okay, how much meat do we have in the freezer? How much meat do I go through? How far can I stretch it? How many, how long does it take me to go through 2.5 pound or 5 pound bag of coffee beans? Once I had figured that out, then I know that as long as this shelf is full of coffee, I've got enough to get me through probably about 3 years. So I don't even have to count that all the time. I know how my shelves should look is the thing. So I don't really even count everything up. Let's see. And you're going to want to throw in some special things. You know what, Deb? I actually had that written down. And I agree. So the thing is, besides all the healthy, good stuff, we always talk about being healthy, right? And having all the healthy stuff, but don't rule out the snacks. You can still go for healthier snacks. And I talk quite often about making your own homemade chocolate, and you can make it fairly healthy. You can even make it without added sugar if you use like some dried fruits that are naturally pretty sweet, like raisins. In fact, the first homemade chocolate I made, I didn't add any sugar to. I simply thought, I'm going to try something. I did the cocoa butter. I did the cocoa powder, and did that whole thing. And then threw in some raisins. I actually I have videos on this. I just put the raisins, sprinkle them into a pie pan, a buttered pie pan, and then poured the melted cacao butter and cacao powder or cocoa, either way. I mean, cacao just means it's raw. Cocoa means it's not raw. That's what it means. It's not going to be raw by the time it's done. So it's actually cocoa. It's all mixed together. And then I just pour it over that and then chill it and let it set. And the raisins make it plenty sweet enough. I don't have to add any sugar or honey. Honey is really good in homemade chocolate. The problem is it can separate and it gets sticky on the bottom. It's still really tasty. That's how I feel about tomato sauce or pasta sauce. We don't like the acidity in pasta sauce, so we only eat a small amount. See, now for us, tomato, that's like the number one thing when it comes to fruits, veggies, and stuff like that. That's the main thing I put up and always have. The reason why, well, of course, I'm part Italian. But I have a lot of things that I use tomatoes as a base for, whether it be making spaghetti sauce. Well, let me just put it this way. I make an Italian sauce. It's virtually the same thing. I don't have any specific recipe or ingredient, measurements that I use. But that same Italian sauce goes on my homemade pizza. It goes on my homemade ravioli. It goes in my spaghetti. It goes in my what's the fourth one? See, pizza, ravioli, spaghetti, lasagna. Okay, those four main things. Plus, I use tomatoes when I'm making barbecue sauce and in making chili. So, and that's just that. And then a lot of times I like to dry a more leathery type tomato rather than the puree and making the tomato flakes that are really dry. But just tomato chunks, dehydrate them up, and I like tossing those into soups and certain types of casseroles if I rehydrate them a bit. But that's my point. So Harmony Home and Garden, she's not going to do a lot of that kind of stuff where I am. So if I was to tell her, well, this is how much tomatoes I put up, she's going to be like, well, that's going to be a complete waste of space for us. I would rather focus on putting up this thing over here. Don't forget to add in the fun extras, the things that you just enjoy that just help add joy to your food storage. Because if we focus just on the things that we absolutely need to survive, that's where you need to start. Right. A lot of people say rice and beans, but not everybody likes rice and beans. So you got to start somewhere, whatever the most important food thing is, figure out how much you're going to need to get you through a year, 2 years, 3 years, or maybe just a year, and then focus on this stuff and get enough to get you through a year here, and then start adding in your extras, your fun things, the things that aren't necessary, but add joy and flavor, so you don't have to deal with food fatigue. Then from there, you can start building, okay, let's see if I can get up to 2 years and 3 years. And now, of course, don't ever also feel like you have to have 3 years or even 2 years. If you don't have the space, don't worry about it. Just do what you can. In most cases, all you really need is enough to get you through, well, that's kind of a tricky thing to say because that's also going to be a case-by-case scenario. So, in some cases, it might be you only need enough to get you through a few days. In some cases, it might be a few weeks. In some cases, it might be a few months. But I would say at least try to get yourself up to a year, especially of the absolute necessities that keep you alive. Keep you and your family fed. And yes, chocolate is a necessity. Why? Because it brings joy or whatever your favorite treat is. Popcorn is another good one. But see, I see popcorn as an excellent thing to store anyway, because not only is it a great and healthy snack if you're getting organic, non-GMO popcorn, but if you have to It's a great one to store. It's going to store better than most corn, most whole corn, and you can still grind it up for flour or or a meal, or even for grits. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Thank you, his sweetie. Chocolate is also loaded with antioxidants. I have a video on the benefits of chocolate, the health benefits of chocolate, because yes, it's true. It just depends on the chocolate. But making your own, you can make some really healthy chocolate, and you can make it the way you want it. You can make it as dark as you want it or as milky as you want it. And you can make white chocolate. And yes, it is still chocolate. Some people say white chocolate is not chocolate. Well, maybe the white chocolate you buy at the store that tastes like nasty stuff isn't. But real white chocolate is made from cacao butter, cocoa butter, which comes from chocolate. With all that said, again, about the food storage math, a few things also to not forget that I think are very important to add would be, I know I say this a lot, is going to be your culinary herbs. So culinary herbs are some of the easiest things to grow anyway, but even if you are growing them, you're still going to want to know when you're harvesting a lot of stuff and your herbs get bigger and bigger, your perennials just keep putting out more and more every year. I don't harvest all of that stuff. I would have far more than I could ever use. So you can put up extra to use for barter, but the culinary herbs are just super important. So even if you're not growing them, make sure you get those put up. The ones that you're going to use the most, whatever it is, sage, rosemary, oregano, thyme. Those are some of the ones I use the most, and grow. Basil as well. There's usually something I forget to throw out there that's a culinary herb that I grow. But whatever culinary herbs you use the most, make sure you get those put up. That's going to add flavor. You can change things up. Make sure you have herbs that can give it a more Mexican flavor if you like Mexican food. So you're going to want your chili powder and your cumin and your paprika, and then your herbs that are going to give it a more Italian flavor, like your rosemary, your fennel seed, your oregano, your basil, and then your basic herbs that can go in a lot of different directions, like your thyme and your sage. So just a few ideas, but here's the other thing, is that not only is that going to add flavor to your food, you can use those to make medicinal extracts and teas. I love that about herbs, is you get the both. You get the flavor for your food, but you also get the health benefits and the ability to make some medicinal goodies out of that. And I hope you guys picked up a few tidbits here and there. Thanks for coming in. Take care, and God bless.